Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners. I am incredibly excited about this episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by a dear friend, Bernie Clark, who is Managing Director and Head of Advisory Services, which essentially means he runs the RIA division for Charles Schwab, who I could argue and say is the most influential, but I'll certainly say one of the most influential people in the entire RIA space and one of the architects who's helped build it. So Bernie, thank you so much for sitting down and walking around the virtual track that you see behind me on this episode of Around the Track.
Always a pleasure to be talking with you, Shirl, and sharing some of our conversation with everyone is a great opportunity.
Yeah, this is our first episode that we've been able to tape in season 4, and I'm excited to see the background there behind me because that's my house right over here on the track, and I'm excited for this summer to be back there watching our horses. But with that, you know the rules. We only have one rule, which is we're going to try to keep this virtual walk around the track to 15 minutes. And in racing and sometimes in life, how you break from the gate really matters. So let me just give you a nice, easy softball and let's sprint out of the gate here together. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and your role at Schwab.
Well, when I was 5,
Yeah.
I appreciate the nice introduction and my role at Schwab. I thought you were going to say for a moment, I argue often at Schwab that this is the most important division within our company. And so I've been involved with advisors since the late 90s, interestingly enough. And so came from Salomon Brothers, a storied firm for 13 years, spent time at Deutsche Bank in London, and then came here and I kind of found a home with advisors as much as Schwab as well. I don't want to discount that, but it's a fabulous business to be in. I started by running operations and trading and service and all the goings-ons of the RIA, which I only bring up because it's so important, I think, in my decision-making process today that I really understand the depth of the business, as I know you do so depthly. And that's what helps us to be able to connect and to talk about things in greater detail than most people in the positions we're in could possibly do. And going through that, running sales, but taking over the advisor business almost a decade ago really is something I think of as a privilege in helping to serve you and serve advisors and work together with great people within this space.
One of the things we were talking about before we started recording the show is we're hoping that we can keep this within, the time frame that's allotted, in large part because we're both so passionate about, this profession and the industry. So I want to ask you for our second question here, what drives your passion? One thing I love about spending time with you, you're so passionate about the industry. You're certainly, passionate about the brand that you're riding for, but you just kind of teed me up well here by talking about your passion for working with advisors. What holistically, collectively is driving the passion for you around each of those components within the industry?
It's such a rarefied space in my mind. I love financial services in general, but this is a space with a lot of altruism in it. People are always trying to get to that next place. And that's why I have so much respect for Dynasty and the work that you've done and others in the industry. It used to be kind of hard to get into the independent space. It still is to some degree, and certainly it's an emotional difficulty for some to break free of what was. But I tell you, technically, we've added so much capability, so much potential within the space, and yet no one's resting on their laurels. And I think the other thing that amazes me perhaps as much is the fact that everybody's so willing to share competitive data, work together. We just all know there's a bigger opportunity there. And the group and the attitude, the culture really of the industry is different than what I would consider to be some of my traditional upbringing and some of the best wires in the industry.
Awesome. Thank you for that. One of the other things I really enjoy about our time when we get together is we both like to be students of the industry. So let me ask you to take maybe I'm going to cheat a little bit and get 2 for 1 in this question. if you take kind of the half step back and let's say look out over the next 3 to 5 years within the industry, what has you most excited about the industry? But then flip it around, what are you concerned about?
I mean, the industry becomes increasingly more proficient, and we know that the success of the industry has been born by capabilities. And so I'm excited because I do think we're still in the earlier days of the capabilities that can be brought to the marketplace on behalf of clients. And you can tell we're having success because clients stick with advisors, clients stick with winning solutions, but they need to add on to them continuously. We could go back into deep conversations about pricing and cost and all of those kinds of things, and they're all quite important. But the reality is advisors have just continued to add services. And as they added services, they didn't increase pricing. They haven't had to drop pricing. People are getting great value, getting it customized. And so I'm excited. There's more to be done there. We don't even understand the potential of what AI could bring to it, artificial intelligence. We used to call that alternative investments. It's like, you have to always question yourself, which question am I answering when you get that AI question, right? But I think there's a lot more predictability, a lot more potential that's going to come. I think you're going to be at the forefront of much of that and thinking through that. And I think sort of the inertia of those being captive to the models that they've had tremendous success with is going to begin to lessen. And I think we're going to see even more springing forward into this space. So do I worry about things? I worry about a lot of things, as we all do, right? Each night. Cybersecurity always sits at the top of all of our worries as an industry. We're going to have to understand how to make sure, because a break or a fail by anyone within our ecosystem is a break for all of us. So it doesn't matter how good Schwab is. It doesn't matter how good Dynasty is, because if there's a major problem at someone who's in the space, we're all going to feel the pain of that. We kind of watched that with the banking crisis this year, right? Lots of people getting swept into the same bucket, unfairly perhaps, in my mind, but at the same time swept in no matter. And so that's important. I think the other thing I watch very, very carefully is I talk passionately about our culture, about the people here, the founders, the generation one, if you will, of people. You're part of generation one. I'm part of generation one. I might be a few years older than you, but we were here when it was hard. We were here when capabilities were nascent. We helped to build them. We listened. We heard for opportunity. We heard where we could make a difference, and we went there. There's a lot, and so we were there in the beginning, and now there's a lot of people seeing the success, and they want in, but they're later in the game, and they might come with different attitudes. And we have to be careful to manage to the fact that the differentiator here still is relationship, and making sure that we're deep in relationship with our clients, we're deep in relationship with our providers, and that we're providing the different service for their clients, ultimately that differentiates and continues to differentiate in the marketplace.
Yeah, knowing you as well as I do, I'm not surprised that you ended that question talking about your clients. So thank you for that. You also said my favorite word there, which is winning, which is part of why we named the company Dynasty, right? And it's hard to win. It's hard, to have sustained excellence and keep winning, and that's a big part of the name. You sit in a very unique position, right? So let's define winning when we think about your clients, the advisory firms that you're supporting, meaning that they take great care of their clients and they're growing. So if that's how we're defining winning, given all of your experience and again your purview into the industry, what are you seeing? What are some of the characteristics of those firms that seem to win a little bit more than perhaps some of their peers?
It's clear to me that the winning firms are those who are willing to take people's lives into their hands. And the definition of that is wide, right? It's not I don't do that. The answer is always, I will do that if it's important, or I will find someone to do that and I'll ride along with you. People are looking for solutions, not just for themselves. They're looking for solutions for their families, their kids. Boy, you and I have talked about this before. You do something for my children, you get 10 times the credit as compared to doing it for me, right? And so it's so important that relationship is trusted and deep enough to do that. And again, the retention of clients within the advisor space is so different than retention of clients within the industry because of that. And so the firms that win continue to bring capability. They continue to sometimes in-house capability. Sometimes it's outsourced, but if it's outsourced, it's done in a very familiar way. and they tend to be winning. Attracting talent, at some point in this conversation, I know we're going to talk about people because it's all driven by people. It's all driven by, we're not the only passionate people here. We're the only passionate people on this call, perhaps, but there are a lot of passionate people in this space, and we need another generation of that to be coming our way. And we need to work together on that. We need to diversify really our industry. We've kind of gotten a B plus in diversifying the industry in effort, and probably a CC minus in results. There's a lot more work to be done, and we're doing it together with universities, training programs, leadership programs, in trying to bring out that next generation of capability. Because in truth, your kids are going to be working with someone different, hopefully the same named firm, but someone different within that firm.
Bernie, we've talked in the past about some of the challenges sometimes that comes with a bit of an economic squeeze within the business, right? Some of the margin pressure that advisors are feeling within their business oftentimes doesn't come from the revenue side, in terms of ROA. It's coming on the cost side because client expectations continue to evolve and the cost to service clients has gone up over time. Schwab obviously is the largest scaled provider, supporting more advisors than anyone else in the industry. And I know, the business, as you just talked about, it's evolving and changing rapidly. It seems like scale matters more now than ever. How do you think about, really leveraging that size and scale to help support in many ways the RIAs that you support?
Well, Shirl, it was a big part of doing the deal with TD Ameritrade. We were large in enough ourselves, but bringing them on board, which I couldn't be more pleased with, and joining our like cultures in the AS business and the advisor services business has been a pleasure. But that scale, I can sit across from any advisor, I can sit across from you, and we have exactly the same goal. We need to serve really well in a customized way, more assets at similar costs. And you can only do that with scale. And so we're walking down the same path. And fortunately, we live in a world today where digitization is aiding us. We have some tools that weren't necessarily available a decade ago that are going to enable us to scale better into that space. But the thing that can't be lost is the customization of our industry, the personalization of our industry. I think that's the true science there, is using your scale to enable you to be there. Remember the days when advisors would think they had competitive advantage by the style of their reporting, or perhaps something in their technology stack. That's gone. I mean, advisors have come to realize that their true value is in having someone do all of that work for them, and then being the front of the relationship with the client. And so that's where you do the customization and the personalization. So we have to do that. You talk about us being big, and I can't say it enough times. If we begin our advisor services business here at $4 trillion to behave big, we lose. That's a huge disadvantage to us. We need to feel small. We need to feel small to everyone. We're still the only provider in the marketplace that serves every aspect of this market: small, big, complex, enterprise. And in truth, and I know you know this, we can't do it all on our own. We need partners like Dynasty in every aspect of that, because the capabilities to personalize is very complex. And we're not going to build everything ourselves. We're going to partner. We're going to deepen our relationships with people who can help do that. And we're going to bring more assets out of the captive markets.
Okay, well, that's a great transition. And by the way, we're making our way around the turn, headed into the final stretch. So I'm excited.
Am I winning? Am I winning?
You're about to take the lead. So you mentioned partnership. You mentioned sitting across the table from each other. A little over a year ago, we sat across the table from each other, and we're so fortunate at Dynasty that you and your colleagues at Schwab decided to make an investment in Dynasty. Why did you guys decide to do that?
For me, it was an incredibly easy decision. In talking to our board, you are a catalyst of growth in the industry. You make a difference in why people make this decision. You remove some of the friction, the inertia, if you will, and then you help to deepen relationships. I mean, we sit clearly on the same side of the table as we're thinking about bringing assets into this space. And so we're better to spend our investment dollars than to invest in something that's helping all of us grow and helping the space grow. And you clearly represent that. You're obviously one of our best partners. There's so much more. I hesitate to say this to you because I think I'm going to get a phone call after this. There's so much more we can do together to even make this space more rarefied.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You and Walt and Rick and the entire team have been amazing partners to us and so many others in the industry. So thanks for that. Let me pivot just real quick because I think a lot of our listeners would like me to ask you a question. You talked about talent earlier. You've been doing this for a while. And as I said, one of the most influential leaders in and around the RIA space and within our ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership style, Bernie, and perhaps with age comes experience? Has it changed at all over time?
I think two ways indirectly there. You've called me old, Shirl, but that's okay. It's okay amongst friends. But no. Obviously, things change. You kind of have to evolve from being in that position of being the answer to everything yourself to making sure that the team becomes the answer. That's a long journey. It's one of the hardest things we do. It starts way back when you get your first, roles managing people, and it evolves more and more as you go forward and becomes more intricate. But the key is having the strength of the team, right? It's having the development of the people. I've been very fortunate to have a very loyal team. And I think loyalty comes from transparency. It comes from humility. I know you enjoy the same attributes within your team. So important to look out and know the people that you're entrusting really to carry forward. Nothing, this is really a strange segue, but nothing kills me more than watching the owner, or not seeing the owner, but watching sort of very young people working in a Subway sandwich shop, entrusted by this person who probably spent a couple of $100,000 to run it. Boy, not what you want to see, right? The people that work with me, the people that we've matured into this industry, I trust them the same way I trust my own decision-making process. And although I might not agree with every decision, I know exactly why every decision is being made. So it's really important to have that depth as you go forward. It's really important to have that trust as you go forward, and the transparency. Now, probably the thing that's changed most in my bio over time is over time I have just learned to listen so much better. And early on you talk a lot, right? But it's so powerful to listen and to hear. I've joked from stage many times. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but if you tell me what you need and I do it, we're happy, right? So we just have to look at that, and we sit in a really advantaged space of seeing the trends across the country, and often being able to decipher with the help of partners like you or our advisory boards, what's becoming a trend and what's just sort of noise at that moment and needs to be addressed, but isn't something we should be changing the industry for. And given that, the $4 trillion in assets we do have that ability to kind of move the industry a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So we're at the finish line, and the same question I ask all the guests on Around the Track is one around, what is your triple crown? And what I mean by that is within racing, it's virtually impossible to win the triple crown, right? To win the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. I'm excited. Team Penny Racing has a horse on the Kentucky Derby Trail this year, which is it's hard to get one even on the trail, let alone to get into the race. So whether it's the owners, the trainers, the jockeys, they live their whole life for this big moment. So in closing, what is your triple crown? What is that one big unattainable goal that maybe is still sitting out there that you want to run hard at, over the course of the next year or so?
I'm going to use a word to sort of start it, and I've mentioned some of this throughout, but we have to make this more seamless, this industry, right? We have the relationship, we have the depth, we have the capabilities, in effect at our hands, and they're growing, the capabilities, and yet we're still not quite seamless in how we deliver against those things. And we talked a moment ago about partnerships. Everybody can't do everything for the client. Everybody can represent themselves as the door to everything, but not necessarily build everything. So we need to deepen our relationships with our partners. We need to deepen our relationships and the capabilities. We have to get smarter. You mentioned economics. We have to get smarter about the economics of our business. It's a skinny business. I've said that many times as well. And I'm okay with that at $4 trillion. We have the scale to be a skinny business. But at the same time, we have to be smarter about how we're serving our clients and how we're getting economically advantaged for that with our partnerships and how we're creating that seamless nature. There's been a lot done in this industry to consolidate capabilities, but I would say I see it still viewed more as a confederation than something that's really seamlessly put together. And so I think that would be a fabulous place for us to really make some movement towards. Now, COVID taught us that you can move quickly in the tech space, right? You can move quickly in doing some things when you need to. So I think we have to make sure that we have that battle cry to start moving in those directions, because the ideas are certainly there.
Awesome. Well, not surprisingly, Bernie, this was a lot of fun. So thank you for taking the time to sit down to have this conversation on Around the Track.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Shirl. Good talking with you and everyone else.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in to another edition of Around the Track.